He helped me fix my roof after a storm. I thanked him with a gift basket. Weeks later, he filed a lien on my house claiming labor compensation. I confronted him, and he said, "Kindness doesn't pay the bills." In court, his lawyer presented a signed contract, with my forged signature. I looked at my husband who wouldn't meet my eyes because I live in Owensboro, Kentucky. Born and raised. It's not flashy, but it's a town where you know your neighbors. Or, at least you think you do. Back in March, we had a terrible storm. Wind tore through like knives, rain sideways, shingles flying. We lost about half our roof. The next morning, there were tree limbs everywhere and a huge wet spot in the living room ceiling. It was a mess. My husband, Mark, and I just stared at it. We both knew our insurance wouldn't cover it anytime soon. Our policy had a $3,000 deductible. We didn't have that kind of money lying around. Then, Darren showed up. He was our new neighbor across the street. Moved in just 2 months before. Early 40s, muscular, always outside doing something with tools. He introduced himself right after the storm and offered help. Said he used to be in roofing and had done some freelance work. He stood at the edge of our yard and said, "That's gonna get worse if you let water in. I can help patch it up." I asked what he wanted for it. He said, "Just cover materials. I'll handle labor." It felt like a miracle. We were desperate. I said yes. I gave him $300 for supplies, and over the next few evenings, he worked on it. Took about 4 days. I brought him water, made sandwiches, even offered him dinner once, which he turned down. At the end of it, I gave him a gift basket. Nothing fancy, coffee, snacks, a card that said, "Thank you for being a great neighbor." He smiled, nodded, and that was that. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. I opened it in the kitchen while Mark watched TV. I remember it clearly. It was a legal document, a lien on our house. Darren had filed it. It said he was owed $4,500 for labor. That I had hired him as a contractor and failed to pay. My hand shook. I thought it was a mistake. Some kind of mix-up. I walked straight across the street to Darren's house. Knocked. He opened the door like he'd been waiting. I held up the letter. "What the hell is this?" He didn't even flinch. "That's for the roof. You said you were helping. I gave you money for supplies. A gift basket." "You never said," he cut me off. "Kindness doesn't pay the bills." I just stood there. Couldn't believe it. He smirked and said, "You hired me. I did the job. Now you owe me." I walked home in a daze. Told Mark everything. He didn't seem surprised. That was the first red flag. "We'll deal with it in court," he said. We got a court date 2 weeks later. Darren showed up in a suit. With a lawyer. I had to use a public defender. I thought I had proof on my side. I had our text messages where he offered to help. Nothing in those messages said anything about payment. I had the card I wrote. Photos of the gift basket. Even receipts for the shingles I bought myself. Then Darren's lawyer pulled out a piece of paper. A contract. Dated. With my name. My address. And my signature. Only it wasn't my signature. I stood up and said, "That's fake. I didn't sign that." The lawyer stayed calm. "Are you claiming forgery?" "Yes," I said. "That's not mine." He pulled out more papers, text messages. Printouts. Supposedly from my number. Messages like, "Thanks again for the work. We'll square up soon." And "Appreciate you working under the table." I never sent those. I turned to Mark. He wouldn't look at me. I leaned in and whispered, "Did you send those texts?" He didn't answer. His eyes were glued to the floor. My stomach dropped. I whispered again, "Did you sign something?" He clenched his jaw. Still didn't answer. I already knew. The judge postponed the ruling. Said we needed more time to sort it out. I didn't even hear most of what he said. I just sat there staring at my husband. When we got home, I didn't speak. Just went straight to the kitchen. Mark followed me 10 minutes later. "I didn't know it would get this far," he said. I asked again, "What did you do?" He sat down and rubbed his face. Darren said it was just paperwork. Said if I signed a basic agreement, it'd make the process easier when we tried to claim it through insurance. I thought it was harmless. But you signed my name. He nodded slowly. And the texts? He didn't answer. That's when I asked, "How much did he pay you?" Mark looked up, shocked. What? He didn't. I stared at him. He was a terrible liar. I left the room. That night, I stayed up and went digging. Checked our shared phone account. Looked at deleted messages. I didn't expect much. But I found something. Screenshots. From our cloud backup. Deleted texts between Mark and Darren. Stuff like, "She doesn't need to know. Just send over the form and once we filed a lien, she'll have to settle. We'll both win. We'll both win." I couldn't breathe. They planned it. My husband and my neighbor. I started printing everything. Every screenshot. Every record. I even called the phone company to verify the messages. Got logs of dates and times. I wasn't going to let this slide. But I also knew something deeper was going on. Mark had debt. I knew that. Credit cards, late notices, some gambling a few years back. He told me it was under control. Now I wasn't sure. Because Darren didn't just come up with this idea out of nowhere. This was planned. And I was going to find out exactly how far it went. The next few days were a blur. I didn't confront Mark right away. I acted normal. Made dinner. Watched TV with him. Pretended I was tired and went to bed early. But really, I was watching. Listening. Gathering more. I needed time to make sure I had everything. And I needed to know why. Because it wasn't just about the roof. It wasn't just the forged signature or the fake messages. It was betrayal. Deep. Calculated. Cold. One night, while Mark was asleep, I went through his laptop. He rarely logged out. I searched his emails, bank account, even his notes app. And I found something. There was a folder. Hidden deep inside another folder labeled work receipts. Inside it were PDFs, dozens of them. Receipts for Western Union transfers. All small amounts. $200 here. $150 there. All sent to the same name. Darren K. Monroe. It started before the roof was damaged. Some even from last year. My stomach turned. I went further. One email from Mark to Darren read, "She's getting suspicious. We need to slow it down for now." Another, "Once the lien clears, I'll get my half." His half. I felt sick. I stared at Mark snoring beside me, drool on his pillow, and I saw a stranger. The next day, I called my friend Vanessa. She used to work at a title company. Knew all about liens, property records, and legal messes. I told her everything. She didn't say much on the phone. Just, "Come over." When I got there, she had her laptop open. She'd pulled up the county records. "You need to see this," she said. Darren had filed 2 other liens in the last year. Both in different neighborhoods. Both helping women repair storm damage. Both claimed unpaid labor. And both settled, quietly, without going to court. I asked who the homeowners were. She showed me. Both women lived alone. Both homes were under their names only. No husbands. I sat there stunned. He's done this before, I whispered. Vanessa nodded. Yeah. And he's careful. He picks women who either trust too easy or are desperate. I asked if he had a business license. She looked it up, nothing current. The last time Darren had a contractor's license in Kentucky was 5 years ago. It expired. I went home and copied everything. Printed it. I kept it in a binder. I also called the 2 women. One didn't answer. The other, a woman named Tracy, agreed to meet me at a coffee shop. She looked tired. Worn out. Mid-50s. She recognized Darren immediately. He told me he was doing me a favor, she said. Then came after me for money I never agreed to. I didn't fight it. I was going through chemo. I just paid to make it stop. She showed me her court records. Same lawyer as Darren had now. Same exact contract format. Everything was matching up. I finally had proof. But I still didn't know what Mark got out of this. What would make him do this to me? That night, I confronted him. I laid the folder on the kitchen table while he was watching TV. He looked at it, then at me. What's that? I didn't say a word. I just sat down. He flipped through it. I saw the moment he realized what it was. He went pale. You went through my stuff, he said. I went through our stuff, I snapped. Because we're married. Because I thought we were a team. He closed the folder slowly. It's not what you think. No? Then explain it. He looked like a man cornered. He wiped his face. Took a deep breath. I owed him money, he said. For what? Cards. I borrowed from him. I couldn't pay it back. Then the storm happened. He said he had a plan. Said if we made it look like a job, filed the lien, we could settle it later. You wouldn't have to know. My voice cracked. You forged my name. I didn't think it would go this far. You always say that. Silence. I could lose the house, Mark. He didn't reply. I leaned across the table. You sold me out. To your bookie. Your friend. For what, $4,000? He looked away. I grabbed my keys and left. That night, I stayed at Vanessa's. The next morning, I called a lawyer. A real one. Not the public defender. Cost me nearly everything I had in savings, but I did it anyway. I told her everything. Gave her the folder. She asked for more time to gather evidence before the next hearing. Then she asked me something that caught me off guard. Do you still want to fight for the house? I didn't answer right away. Because something in me had changed. I wasn't just fighting Darren anymore. I was fighting Mark too. And I was going to make both of them pay. I didn't go home for 3 days. Mark texted me a few times. Apologies. Excuses. At one point he wrote, "We can fix this. I'll tell the judge everything." But I knew better. Mark only did what was best for Mark. If he was offering to confess now, it was because he thought the walls were closing in. I stayed with Vanessa and spent my days working with my lawyer. Her name was Lien. Sharp, no nonsense, mid-30s, worked out of Bowling Green. She had a reputation for tearing apart dirty contractors and shady real estate schemes. She looked through the screenshots, the fake contract, the text logs, the liens Darren had filed in other counties. Do you realize this is organized fraud? She said. It's small scale, but repeated. If we can prove he's done this more than once with intent, it's criminal. Not civil. What about Mark? I asked quietly. She looked at me. If your husband was part of it, he's in just as deep. That hurt. Even though I knew it, hearing her say it out loud made it real. She filed motions to subpoena Darren's phone records, bank transactions, and anything linking him to those other two women. We also filed a report with the police. Fraud. Forgery. Conspiracy. Then something unexpected happened. 3 days before the hearing, a man showed up at Vanessa's house asking for me. Early 30s, skinny, looked rough. Vanessa called me immediately. I stepped outside to meet him. His name was Kyle. Said he used to work with Darren. Look, I don't want trouble, he said, but I heard you're taking him to court. You need to know, he's done this kind of thing in Indiana too. I helped him set up one of those contracts. Years ago. Got a cut of the payout. Didn't know he was forging signatures till after. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. He looked over his shoulder. Because Darren burned me too. Owed me $2,000. Never paid. Then bragged about how he made your husband sign some stupid paper just to give it legal flavor. He laughed about it. I gave his info to Sarah. She called him that night, and by morning, she had a sworn affidavit. Things were picking up. But Darren must have felt it too, because suddenly, his lawyer sent us a settlement offer, $2,000 in exchange for dropping the lien and walking away. I almost laughed when Sarah showed me the letter. He thought I was desperate. That I'd fold. We declined. With force. A day later, something even weirder happened. I got a text from a number I didn't know. It said, "Be careful what you dig up. Not everything's yours to find." I stared at it for a while. It wasn't a random scam message. It was a threat. I forwarded it to Sarah, who traced the number back to a burner phone. No way to prove it was Darren, but I knew. The timing was too perfect. But it only made me dig harder. The next twist came from Mark's side of things. I had Sarah pull our joint credit history and his separate accounts. That's when I found the credit card. Opened 3 years ago. In my name. Maxed out. Over $6,000 in charges. All local, gas stations, poker halls, liquor stores, hardware chains. Things Mark used regularly. He used my social security number. I never knew. I froze the account, filed a fraud report, and then did something I never thought I'd do. I filed for legal separation. When Mark was served, he showed up at Vanessa's, red in the face, begging. "You don't have to do this," he said. "We can fix it." I opened the door just wide enough for him to see me. "You should have thought of that before you sold me out to a con man." He stepped forward. "You're gonna ruin both of us." "No," I said. "You did that." And I shut the door. Later that day, Sarah got confirmation that one of Darren's other victims, Tracy, was willing to testify. She'd been quiet for a year, ashamed, but after hearing about my case, she agreed to speak. That changed everything. We were now building a pattern. A man targeting vulnerable women after storms. A man using fake contracts, fake text messages, forged signatures. A man who used my husband to make his scam more convincing. The final piece? We traced a bank deposit into Darren's account. It matched a withdrawal from one of my credit cards, the same card Mark opened in my name. The same card Darren supposedly never touched. That was it. Direct proof that they were in this together. And now we had them both. The next hearing was set. Courtroom. Judge. Evidence. Darren. Mark. And me. And I was ready to expose everything. The morning of the hearing, I woke up early. Vanessa drove me to the courthouse. I wore a dark blue blazer and jeans, clean, simple, serious. No makeup. No games. Mark was already there. He sat on the bench outside the courtroom, eyes low, hands folded like he was waiting for a funeral. Darren stood near the doorway, smug, dressed like he thought he was walking into a real estate pitch. His lawyer was with him, flipping through papers. Sarah, my lawyer, met me at the elevator and nodded once. "We're ready." Court started on time. The judge, a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a tight gray bun, asked for opening statements. Darren's lawyer started strong. Claimed Darren was a contractor doing honest work, and I had refused to pay. Said there was written agreement, text confirmations, and a clear pattern of dishonesty from my side. Sarah didn't flinch. When it was our turn, she laid it all out. She started with the text messages. Showed how they came from a spoofed number. Presented expert analysis. Then she moved to the contract. A forensic handwriting specialist had reviewed it, said the signature didn't match any of my past records. Then she dropped the bomb. The financial trail. Bank records that showed deposits to Darren's account tied directly to withdrawals from the credit card in my name. The card Mark had opened without me knowing. She handed the judge copies. Highlighted. Then came the screenshots. The emails. The testimony from Kyle and Tracy. The other women Darren had scammed. And finally, Mark's involvement. Sarah called him as a hostile witness. Mark looked like he wanted to crawl out of his skin. He tried to dodge questions. Tried to say Darren tricked him too. But Sarah was prepared. She read his own email out loud in court. "Once the lien clears, I'll get my half." Mark went quiet. He didn't say another word after that. The judge leaned forward and said, "Mr. Camden, are you confirming that you knowingly participated in the creation of a forged contract, using your wife's identity, for personal gain?" He paused. Then nodded. My chest burned, but not with sadness. With relief. Darren tried to claim he didn't know the contract was fake. Said Mark assured him it was legit. Said he just trusted him. But Sarah cut that down fast. She showed he'd used the exact same format on 2 other fake liens, including one in Indiana that Kyle testified about under oath. She read off court filings, line by line. And then, to finish it all off, she presented the text I got from the burner number, the threat. She asked the judge to allow it into record, along with the timing and tower data showing it pinged near Darren's house the day it was sent. Darren's lawyer objected, but it was too late. The judge called a recess and left the room. We waited. 15 minutes later, she came back. Her words were calm. Cold. Final. She declared the lien invalid. Said it was built on forged documents and fraudulent intent. She referred Darren to the district attorney for possible criminal charges, including fraud, forgery, harassment, and conspiracy. Then she turned to Mark. "You committed identity fraud against your own spouse," she said. "You may think this is a civil matter, but you'll be hearing from the Commonwealth soon." She awarded me $75,000 in damages. Enough to cover the credit card theft, legal fees, and emotional distress. But that wasn't even the end. 2 weeks later, the sheriff's department arrested Darren. His previous victims were coming forward. Tracy had found courage. So had another woman from Indiana who Sarah helped contact. Darren was being charged with multiple counts across county lines. Mark? He lost his job after the arrest made the local paper. The fraud charge stuck. I filed for divorce, and the court granted an emergency protection order. He had to leave the house. The same house he tried to scam me out of. But here's the final twist. I sold it. That house carried too many ghosts. I listed it, got a good offer, and used part of the money to pay off the remaining debts in my name, ones Mark had racked up while I cooked him dinner and made excuses for his late nights. I moved into a small place on the edge of town. Peaceful. Clean. One night, about a month after the dust settled, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Inside was a single note. Written in sloppy block letters, "Sorry." No name. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. I burned it. Because sometimes sorry just isn't enough. Mark and Darren both learned something the hard way: when you betray someone who trusted you, you don't just lose a house. You lose your freedom, your peace, your future. And in the end, I didn't just take back what was mine. I made sure they'd never scam another soul again.